stop asking why me and start being grateful for every opportunity, every circumstance, every instance that allows you to grow. And dude, it changes everything.
Welcome to Prioritize Your Life and PrioritizeYourLife.com. I'm unbelievably excited to be with Keaton the Muscle Hoskins today. Thank you so much, man, for your time.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be with you, man.
I want to start in probably an unorthodox way by just explaining what you've already done in my life with the short amount of time that I've known you, because it's kind of crazy to me, and I just have to say thank you. And I want to throw out a pitch to everybody that's looking to make a change in their life to check out Limitless Society. First, I spent the better part of a year studying Stoicism and just got into it. And like their whole thing is memento mori. It's be aware of your own death, become the best version of yourself that you can be because time is limited.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of my life. But still, I can't say that I'd wake up in the morning and I was like, remember that you're going to die today.
Yeah.
And then my own mom passed away about a year ago, and nothing brings you closer to your own mortality than a loved one passing away. But I can't say even still that got me out of bed in the morning where the first thing I thought of was like, you need to get moving. Your time is short.
Yeah.
So then enter meeting you, and just the past couple months, you share a story about your dad passing away when you were only 21.
Yeah.
You talked about the hourglass and how we need to look at our lives as if they were an hourglass and every piece of sand passes by. And it did something to me. It just spoke to my soul in a way that Stoicism, my own mom, all of those things didn't touch. And I can't say why. I just think, just thank you. So the next day, I watched that speech. The next day I got out of bed. I literally saw an hourglass in front of my face. It's like the first time something has just hit me in the face the second I got out of bed. And I was like, get moving today, man. Like, this is it. This is your day. And it's been that way every day since. So
I love that.
I just have to thank you and tell everybody to go check out the Limitless Society, because this is what Keaton does. And you have an amazing gift, and just thank you so much.
I appreciate that, man. I spend a lot of time telling people that you don't have time.
Yeah.
You really don't. It's from Marcus Aurelius. And that is, you should contemplate death on a regular basis.
Yep.
And the reality is if you do that, it puts you into a perspective, a different perspective. And I teach this very simple principle to people all the time, and that is true perspective breeds discipline. Because when we know that we only have so much time, we're more disciplined with the time that we're given. We're more disciplined in how we talk and how we act and how we speak and what we think about and all of those things. And the reality is, I was even talking to one of your guys about somebody that we knew who passed away, a young kid who passed away, and it was a freak thing, and he left behind a family. You don't really know how much time you have, and that's okay. That's okay. But what you should do is realize that your time is running out. You should be more selfish with your time. You should be more giving with your time to the people that you want to give to. And when you really put into perspective, real perspective, like, dude, I could be here today and then I could be gone tomorrow. And then when you really internalize that, like personally, then you go to the next step. And the next step is, and you've heard me say this, is like, dude, I contemplate the death of my children, the death of my wife. All of those contemplations give me true perspective in which I live, which is, I know how I want this interaction to go. I don't want to fight. I don't want to argue. I don't want to spend time doing stupid. I don't want to waste time, because the reality is I just don't have that much. Right? And even when you came in, I told you if I could go back and talk with God, I would give him one piece of advice, and I would say, hey, put an hourglass on everybody's shoulder. I sure as know there are people wasting their lives right now that if they sat and wasted their life and watched that hourglass go, they wouldn't do it, because the perspective in which they had, knowing like, I can sit here or I can go get out of life what I want and do what I want to do, because this is running out,
That's a perfect segue, because one of the big questions I wanted to ask you, and it's something that I love about the entire premise of the Limitless Society, is your unwavering belief in God, and you have no fear of just telling people who you are, why you're doing it, and how God is like the center point of all of that. So I'd love to just talk about, and almost I feel like someone in your position, it's almost like saying, why do you still believe in God? because there's a lot of people that have a hard time with that belief. And I've even heard you preaching. It's like, I don't care which one is, but freaking decide, which I find it's awesome. So I'd love to talk to you about your belief and why you're there still, and how that all has kind of come about in your life.
This weekend I did a mastermind in Cabo, and I spoke quite a bit. And one of the topics that I spoke on was coming to know who you really are allows you to become the person to make the decisions that you need to make in your life. One of my good friends, Cody Sanchez, she's a business coach. She's pretty famous. She says, if I took an entrepreneur to dinner and I handed them a menu, I know how successful they're going to be based on how long it takes them to order off the menu. And what she was talking about was the decisiveness, like the time it takes to make a decision, right? And if it's short, they'll be successful. If it's a long, drawn-out process, they're not going to be successful. Well, the reality is that we're talking about perspective. When you get into the right perspective, you don't have any more time to just sit and think on decisions that you're going to make. So how do I, if I'm somebody who's indecisive, if I take a long time to make decisions, how do I change that? And this weekend, the principle that I taught was, you don't know who you are. And when you find out who you are, you're able to make those decisions much, much quicker. Well, how do you find out who you are? And one of those simple pieces is you should find out if you believe in God. Whether that's you don't or you do, just get off the fence, right? And the more that I come to know in me, independent of any other person, who God is, it allows me to make the right decisions because I know who I am. I'll tell you, I build leaders. That's what I want to build. And you're becoming a great leader, doing all this cool stuff. Building a leader means helping someone come to know who they are. Most people don't know who they are. And that's the problem. Is when times come, whether they're difficult, easy, stressful, angry, whatever time comes, whatever chaos comes, I know I'm going to make the right decision because I know exactly who I am. And the problem is when you don't know who you are, you're indecisive on everything, and every little mistake you make and every success you see is drawn out because the decision time that it took to make it was drawn out. So I preach this all the time. You should come to know who you are, and this is how you do it. And I'll just run it through just a quick example for the listeners. Number one, you should figure out what your core values are. Most people don't really know what their core values are, right?
Yeah.
You write down your core values. I want to be good to people. I want to be a good dad. I want to make a lot of money. I want to be happy. I want to take care of people, right? And you list out your core values, which is something most people have never done, but you should do it. Then, and this is where it gets hard, you draw a line down the middle of that. And on that line, you write, what am I willing to die for? That changes quite a bit of those core values. Now, I did this once, and I wrote, I want to help other people, right? That was my core value. And then I asked the question, am I willing to die to help other people? What do you think the answer was?
Yes.
No. The answer was no.
Okay.
The answer was absolutely not. Now, let me tell you why, and this is why you do this exercise.
Yeah.
I have 5 children and a wife. I'm not willing to leave them fatherless and leave my wife husbandless to help other people. My duty and my role is to them first.
Gotcha.
So I asked that question, am I willing to die for this? And I said, no, I'm not. So I crossed that off. I went down that list. One of the things I said was honor and integrity above all else. I asked the question, am I willing to die for honor and integrity? Yes, I am. I'm okay for my children to stand at my grave and say, my dad died for honor and integrity. He lived and died on those principles, and I'm okay with that. So from the list of core values, I create a new list, and that list is my favorite list in the whole world. It's called Ethos. Your ethos. There isn't a human being on this planet who is a good leader who doesn't have ethos. Ethos is really simple. It is a guiding belief. It is the platform on which you make decisions. If I don't have that platform set up, I can't make the decisions, which then I go back, well, why does it take you so long to make decisions? Because you don't have a real ethos. You don't know who you are. So I fill out this whole list of core values. I transfer from that list to my ethos. What am I willing to die for? That list is much shorter. In that list, I create who I am. I come up with my ethos. What am I willing to die for? And when I create that list and I build that platform, everything that comes my way, every question that comes, every decision I need to make, I immediately go to my ethos. I'm no longer going back and forth and saying, well, I want to help that person, but it's going to affect how I take care of my family. That's not a question anymore. My family comes first.
Yeah.
So doing that allows a human being to find out who they are. One of my best friends who I was with this weekend, his name's Rob Bailey. Love Rob's music. One of his songs says, look at yourself in the mirror and tell me who you are. Most people are not willing to do that. Most people have never done that. But when you do that, when you go through this actual exercise, you find out who you really are, and every single decision becomes crystal clear, and you make it at the drop of a hat. Now, I'm not saying I don't make mistakes, because I make tons of mistakes. But in my process of decision making, I make a mistake, and then I fix it as soon as I can. So I make mistake, I fix it. I fail, I fix it. I make mistake, I fix it. Rather than a drawn out process that takes a normal person 30 days, it takes me 30 minutes. That's how I get to where I want to be, and that's how I build what I want to build. And your ethos is only built on a very simple principle of, do I believe in God or don't I? Because I can't answer that question if I don't know where I stand. And again, I'm okay with any man or woman who is off of the fence and says, I do not believe in God, or I 100% believe in God. I'm not okay with those people that live right there on the fence. Even Christ said, I hate lukewarm. I will spit that out of my mouth. I either want you cold or I want you hot. And that's the difference for people to succeed, is finding out who they are, find out what your core values are, find out what you believe, find out what your ethos is. Your ethos is your guiding belief, and it's the guiding belief that allows you to make decisions. You are the sum total of your thoughts. If I wish to change the sum total of you, I must change your thoughts. Well, how do I do that? I force you into the decision-making process and allow you to do it and make it much quicker because you know who you are. That's how you change.
For people that are on the fence, and I don't know if you were ever there, what is your advice to get off? Like how?
Pertaining to God?
Yeah.
This is a really, really simple one, and this one's probably not going to sit well with a lot of people because it takes a lot of context, but I'm not going to give a lot of context. In my faith, there's a scripture that I love, and it's a young man. His name's Enos, and he says, I went into the wilderness with my father for hunting, and my dad had taught me all of these things about God. He taught me all of these things about the life, eternal life, all that stuff, and I didn't really believe it. So I went out into the forest, and he says a very specific word. I knelt down and I wrestled with God. He didn't say I prayed. He didn't say I argued. He didn't say I had a conversation. He said I wrestled. Now, in high school, I wrestled. I played a ton of sports. If you've ever wrestled, there isn't anything physically harder than wrestling. There just isn't. You go all out for 3 minutes, 3 rounds, or 5 rounds. It's not easy. The reason Enos said wrestle is because it will be the hardest thing you physically, mentally, and spiritually have ever done. So for those people who are on that fence, you know what my challenge would be? You need to wrestle with God. And I'll tell you this, and again, this is where it offends people. Like when I wrestle with God, it's not nice.
Sure.
I don't hold punches. Enos said he wrestled with God for a full day. And then at the end of the day, like that's a long time. Most people can't sit down and pray for 10 minutes, let alone wrestle for a night. If you want to find out who God is, or if he exists, or if he doesn't, here would be the challenge. Go wrestle with him. Really wrestle with him. Take the time, put in the energy, put in everything you have, and this is the best promise. You either get an answer or you don't. And then the best part is one day if there is a God and you never got an answer and you stand in front of him and you go, you know what? I didn't believe in you. You know why I didn't believe in you? Because I put in the time and energy to wrestle with you and I got nothing. I got nothing. And so I didn't believe in you. And I guarantee you that day, God's going to say, yeah, I totally understand that. If you didn't get anything and you put in the time and energy and I didn't answer you, I understand why you didn't believe in me. Now, I don't believe that. I think every man and woman that puts themselves in a position to really wrestle with God, and by the way, wrestling with God, it's not nice. It's not filled with a little emotion. It's a lot. You're screaming and yelling. You're doing everything you have and you're putting it all out there and you're asking in return that you get something back that allows you to grow in that faith. So for those people who are on the fence, which is the majority of people, you know what I say? You just haven't put in the time and the energy to wrestle with that maker. And here's the best part. If there is a God, He's obviously perfect, and he obviously has the truth of all things. Not just the truth of things pertaining to the gospel, not just the truth of things pertaining to that which you think is right, the truth of everything. So if I build a business, if I build a family, if I build leadership, if I build anything, I can literally go to that source who's the truth of everything and get the things that I need to do that.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, pray and help me figure out this or figure out that. Put your pride down. Like right now, dude, when I have issues pertaining to anything, I'm having conversations with the man who has the truth of everything. I'm asking stupid questions that most people say, why are you praying about that? Because I need to know the answer, and that's the only one that I have that gives me the answer. And everything I build, my family, my relationships, my businesses, everything goes all the way back to the fact that I know there's a God. I know he answers me. I know he's the truth of everything. And I want to go to the truth as much as I can to get the truth so I can make the decisions I need to make. That's how you do it.
I love that. One of my favorite parts about the Limitless Society is the entire premise of it, and you say regularly, which is, if there is a God, then you are his child, and that makes you his heir, and you literally have no limit. And that, for me, that's something that rings true. And I think about the Hourglass, and it's already changing my life. And so I'd like to again invite people to think about that, and whether or not you get off the freaking fence. And hopefully, if you get to the other side, and I'm not going to judge you either way either, but if you find out that God is real after you've wrestled with him, please understand who you are and that you can do anything. And I love that's what you do. That's a part of your ethos,
yeah,
right?
it's the premise on which everything I build. Yeah. You know, it's so easy to say that we're limitless, and everybody's like, ugh, what does that really mean? What does that
become cliche?
Yeah,
with the movies.
Yeah, it's like, what does that really mean? But the truth is that we really are limitless, and I love this explanation. You know, I have a helicopter. Yeah. In the 1800s, some crazy son of a decided he wanted to fly with birds. And everybody around him was like, you're stupid, you're crazy. We don't even have automobiles, and you're talking about flying with birds? And at some point from the 1800s to today, I get the opportunity to jump in a helicopter with my family and go fly with birds because he didn't believe in limitations. And he never gave up on that. And because of him, we have ultimately created what we have now, which is I get to go fly with birds. I get to literally go sit in the air. Because he at some point believed, like, I know this is delusional, I know it's crazy, but I just don't see a limitation, and I think that we can make it happen. The truth is nothing is without reach, it's just time to reach it. Yeah. And maybe that's what we have to accept. Maybe we just say, it's not that I can't do it, it's that I'm not gonna put in enough time to do it.
Right.
And that's a different conversation. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. But it's gonna take me more time than I'm willing to put in. You know, just like the guy in the 1800s, he probably never saw a flying helicopter.
Yeah.
But because of him and the time that has passed since then, we now have the opportunity to fly with birds. The truth is like you said, if God's real and he's our father and we're his heir and he's perfect, that means we're heir to him. And that means that we have the ability to do everything that he can do, which is everything. There is no impossible anymore. That's why I created the name Limitless Society. And the truth is, dude, I will spend the rest of my life trying to adequately portray to people, you have the ability to accomplish anything you want to accomplish, but you have to first comprehend and conceive that it's possible. Once you do that, once the mind can actually comprehend it and conceive it, then you can go and achieve it. And if all I do for the rest of my life is just convince people to go after it and believe that it's possible, I will feel fulfilled. I don't have all the answers. I just know that the ultimate answer is that there's nothing that is without reach and nothing is impossible. There is no limit except for the limit you put in your own mind. But if I build the premise that there are no limits, I start to begin to rework everything I've ever believed, and that's when real happens. That's when real success happens, which is a beautiful thing.
And you're not just seeing it in your own life, but you're seeing it time and time again with everyone that you're working with, and that becomes quite a snowball effect. So
absolutely.
Prioritize your life, kind of where it all came from. I was literally in this moment of my life where I was trying to figure out, I knew that I wanted to do certain things, and I was kind of in a holding pattern, and I got on my knees and I prayed, and I was just like, help me find a way. And it wasn't much longer, I bumped into a neighbor of mine, and I had heard somewhere that he had an experience. I didn't know really what it was. something smacked me harder than you can imagine. It said, you need to help him share his story.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is going to be awkward, but if I don't follow that, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. So I just went up to him and was like, hey, I have a studio. I'd like to help you share your story, whatever the heck that is. And he was like, okay, let me talk to my wife about it. And then what happened after that is still kind of just blows my mind. We threw it up, and it's one of the most viewed interviews in history, and it's a near-death experience. But what I found fascinating is as you look through the comments, it has almost 50,000 comments on that video. You start seeing human nature, and there are some trends and things that people commonly ask. One of the first ones is, if there is a God, why is there so much hate, and why are things so bad? Why are there natural disasters? So I think that'd be an interesting one to discuss.
You know, I actually love that conversation because that's, I think, what most people have. That's a question most people have. Why do children die?
Yeah, and I think it keeps them on the fence, right?
Absolutely. Like, if he really loves us, why does he allow us to have that? Yeah. And my first thing that I would go back to is your whole belief in, is that next life better than this? And I think it is. So if I was in a waiting room and I knew the next room was just the best place in the whole world, why would I be upset that people left the waiting room? That would be my first thing. Like you need to understand where people are going. Death is not a bad thing. Death is a reward. And most people don't look at death that way. And that's hard, right? Death is a reward. It's a reward away from all the pain and suffering. But here's my answer to that. We came down here and we said, I want to go down and gain experience. And in experience, I want to learn and grow, right? And God said, okay, but in experience and in free will, I'm giving you the ability to do whatever you want to do, whatever that is. I cannot take that from you. Most people have bad experiences. They were from other people's ability to make decisions that God didn't step in, right? To say that God caused something is to abnegate your own responsibility. Like, to say, well, that happened because of God isn't really a fair conversation. Now, with that understanding, I go all the way back, and this is where it gets really beautiful. You know, I've struggled a lot with, why did my dad die when I was 21? It's been something I've struggled with every time I have a child. Every great experience I have, I'm like, it's just really hard. I wish my dad was here. But in understanding a really, really cool principle, it's allowed me to accept the truth of that question. And the question isn't, why does God allow it? But why did I choose it? So every single one of us at some point in our lives before we came here, we signed up for this stuff. We sat with God and he said, you're going to go down and there's going to be despair and fear and pain and sorrow. And we probably asked the question like, well, why? Why are we going down to that? And it was a really simple answer. It was for your experience. Because in experience is where you grow, it's where you learn. Think about the hardest times of your life, the darkest moments in your life. That's where you learned the most. The greatest teacher is pain. So we said to God, okay, I want to learn and I want to become like you and I want to grow and I want to progress. And he goes, okay, but you must first experience. And in experience, it's going to be hard, it's going to be painful, it's going to be sorrowful. I know. I still want to go down and I want to be a part of it. And the most beautiful thing that I've ever thought and or put together is every one of us that go through the things that we go through in life, we signed up for that. My dad signed up and said, you know what? I'm going to die at 47. And in my death, I will teach my children things I never could have taught them. So my question could be, why did you allow it? And God would say, I didn't. Your father signed up for that because he knew that's what he needed to do to teach you. Why do children die? Those children signed up for that so that they could teach what needed to be taught to those around them. When do you see the most beautiful experiences in life? It's when people come together during tragedy. When do you learn the most? It's in the deepest and darkest painful moments of your life. If we take all of that out, what experience do we have? We all know that there's happiness and there's sorrow, and they are completely opposite. I cannot feel happiness without knowing what sorrow is. I can't do it. So God said, how much do you want to learn? I said, I want to learn everything. Well, then you're going to have to experience the most low of lows and the most painful of painful so that you know what the high of highs is and the happiness is. And he signed up to do this, and he signed up to do this, and he signed up to do that so that you could learn. And if I look at life differently and I say, you know what, dude, this is about experience, I'm no longer asking the question, why does God allow it? Rather, I'm grateful to God for giving it to me and allowing it to happen for me and teaching me. The man I am today would never have been that man if my father was still alive. It wouldn't have happened. I don't know where I would be. I don't know what kind of leader I would be. I don't know how much money I would make, but I know for sure if he was still here, it wouldn't have been the same experiences and the same knowledge that I gained when he died. And if I start looking at it that way, and this is my favorite thing in the whole world, my entire mindset shifts from why me to thank you so much to doing this for me. Because life is for me, it's not happening to me. And when I look at it that way, my prayers are different. When I go through sorrow and pain and anguish and I lose people and people are suffering, I now say, you know what, Heavenly Father, I'm just so grateful that you're allowing this so that I can learn what I need to learn. And I'm grateful for all of it. You know, if you go all the way back into the New Testament and we talk about the life of Christ and we talk about his suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane and on the cross and all the crazy things he went through, so many people would say, why? And I don't say why. I say, you know what I'm so grateful for? I'm so grateful for a God in heaven that watched his child go through that, who could have stepped in at any moment and taken that. But then we wouldn't have had what we had. It wouldn't have happened. So my conversation now changes from why do you allow that to happen to thank you for allowing it to happen for the betterment of me and my life, because everything is different. And without this, I wouldn't be where I am. I would never have grown to what I wanted to grow to. I signed up to grow a long time ago. So to say I signed up to grow and then say, well, why am I going through so many hard things that make me grow is not a fair question anymore. Rather, the question or the statement is, I'm just really, really grateful that I get to go through that. And that's a hard conversation. You know, we have a kid that we're working with right now who got diagnosed with cancer. He's 8 years old. And the conversation for me is no longer like, God, why are you letting this happen to this child? But rather, what am I supposed to learn? And thank you so much for this opportunity of growth. And that changes everything.
It's so starkly different from where I feel like the entire world is going, which is entitlement and complaining and getting pissed off at everything.
Yeah.
The smallest offense, your life is over. It's just to be grateful for your struggle.
It's like sitting in a classroom that you've been taught and then saying, hey, I want to learn this. I need to grow. I need to become whatever, knowledgeable. And then the teacher handing you the test, which is hard as shit, and you going, oh, why? Why? Well, you said you wanted to grow. You said you wanted to learn, and this is how we do it. Yeah. You don't get to ask why anymore. You should be grateful for the test because that's the end goal here. And the thing is, if I asked every human being, do you want to be better? Do you want to progress? Every single one of them would say yes. But that same human being, when they're faced with something that allows them to grow, what do? Why me? Why is this happening? Well, because at some point you said you wanted to grow, you wanted to learn, and this is how you do it. Yeah. Stop asking why me and start being grateful for every opportunity, every circumstance, every instance that allows you to grow. And dude, it changes everything. Because again, and this is such a cliche saying, your mindset is everything. So then my question would be for those people, what if you were just grateful for all of it? What if instead of waking up and saying, I'm grateful for my beautiful family, I'm grateful for all this money, I'm grateful for all these successes, what if I'm grateful for the pain? And I'm grateful for the sorrow, and I'm grateful that my father passed away. I'm grateful for every circumstance that is allowing me to grow, to become better. Because at some point, we're going to stand before God, and we're going to look back at this, and he's going to go, that was hard, right? You go, yeah. And he's going to say, did you learn? And you're going to say, yeah, I learned so much. And he's like, I'm so grateful for where you are today. And you're going to say, I'm so grateful for it too. Thank you so much for that. Because I'm different today. I'm progressed. I'm closer to becoming like you. But that conversation can't be had then. It needs to be had right now. Because this life has only been given to us for just a small moment. And in that life, we get the opportunity to grow or not to grow. Yeah. And the people who are asking the question, why me? Why this? Why did God do that? They're not growing. Right. Those who are thankful for all of it are the ones who are truly progressing and growing. And that's the most beautiful thing about life.
I love that you brought up the classroom, because one of my favorite things that I've taken from interviewing a good number of people that have had near-death experiences, one of the gentlemen, he says that his biggest takeaway is that life is a school, and it's the hardest school for souls that exists.
Yeah.
And that it makes it more beautiful too, because you think, yeah, you go to school, then you go home. Sometimes school sucks.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up, the classroom, because that's one of my favorite ways to think about life. And I think if we can focus on that and be grateful for everything, just like you said, it totally, completely changes your life.
And that's really just one small switch that people can make. Like, what if I was just grateful for all of it? Yeah. What if I was just grateful for all of it? And in that gratitude, everything shifts. Instead of life happening to me, life happens for me. And when it happens for me, it means it progresses me. And I'm just grateful for all of that. And that's a huge shift that I wish more people would begin to fathom and start doing.
Thank you so much, man, for your time today. This was
Absolutely
beautiful. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate being on with you.